used to go to this restaurant when we lived in Bellflower, California. It was in Cerritos.
Yeah, we're talking the 80s now.
It was in the 80s, and they made the best steak soup. It was hearty brown, rich broth with hunks of steak in it, and it was so good. So I looked up some recipes. I've also had really good steak soup at Black Angus, right? But theirs is like with a ground beef, and I decided I would take out some beautiful ribeye steaks. I know you guys are gonna think I'm crazy by cutting this up and making steak soup out of it, but that's what we're doing. That's what I have, and that's what I'm doing. So this is what I'm thinking about doing. We're gonna chop those into chunks. I'm gonna brown them in like 2 tablespoons of butter. Then you guys, I am adding, I kind of wrote this down. Now this total amount of steak is 1,356 grams, so it was under 2 pounds. But I'm gonna put Worcestershire sauce in here, Worcestershire sauce. I'm gonna put a half of a cup of my Rotel tomatoes. I have all my vegetables reconstituting because I put a level tablespoon of celery, a level tablespoon of carrots. I crushed up half of a tablespoon of garlic. I put in less than a tablespoon of onions, and I want to constitute these up. Then I'm going to use my bone broth, my rich, delicious bone broth. Let me get some out because this is what I'm using. Gotta finish it off and make some more. So this is a 24-ounce container. I have a little bit left. I'm gonna use this and then add some water if I need it. We're gonna chop up the steak and brown it, and then I'm gonna add all these ingredients.
So that's chicken bone broth, right? Or is that?
Yes, no, it's chicken bone broth. And if I don't have beef bone broth, you can use beef bone broth, beef consomme, bone broth made from beef. Did I say that? Yeah. Or chicken. You know, whichever one you have on hand. And then I'm gonna use some xanthan gum to thicken this all up at the end. Anyway, you guys, Harry is the meat chopper. He doesn't trust me with a knife. So I need him to chop up the steak, and once he gets the steak all chopped up, we'll come back and we'll make my soup. Do I have this written down? No. It's written down in my brain, in my noggin, in my noodle. So you guys, take notes if you want to make this soup. See you guys in the next segment.
You just got to be cognizant of where your fingers are.
Especially if you wear gloves, because you don't have as much feeling.
Yeah.
It's going to be a nice hearty steak soup for sure. I save the fat and I cook them in the fat. If you guys don't like the fat, do your thing. But you guys, that fat is got lots of good nutrients in it, and I keep it in my stew. At least cook with it, and then you can take those pieces out if you want. Anyway, okay. I've got 2 tablespoons of melted butter and 1 teaspoon of bacon grease because I want to give that flavor of the bacon grease. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sear this butter, get the temperature going up on it. Because I just want to get this meat browned. Sally had a piece of steak tartare. She loved it. Okay, so I'm going to put some salt. And some pepper on my meat, just to sear in those flavors. So I've been letting my vegetables in warm water just reconstitute a little bit. And then I'm just going to get this can open here I would use regular tomatoes, but I don't have any. This is the one I have, so that's what's going in, you guys.
Want me to open it?
I think I can do it. I think I'm okay today. My hands feel good. And then I'm going to freeze the rest of my rotel because I only want a half of a cup. I'm using a lot of vegetables and I want to keep my carbs below 20 today. 20 or below, so I'm using less vegetables, just enough for flavor. She's just, what are you doing? She says, I saw some steak tartare. I just thought I would check. Just check it. Just check it. So I'm going to put some of the rotel tomatoes. I'm going to do half of a cup without overwhelming me with the carbs. So turn your meat, let it brown on the other side. Let your steak all nice and brown.
Maybe like medium heat when you're doing this?
Yep, I got it on medium. I don't want to burn the butter, but I want that butter and the bacon grease to infuse everything. And then as the meat cooks, the fat renders, so then you get the fat and the butter and the bacon grease. Oh yeah. Now you could do this in an Instapot, you could pressure cook it, but I decided to do this on the stove because there's a lot of you that do not have pressure cookers. So I want to just do it the old-fashioned way on the stove. And you guys do not have to use these vegetables. Instead of a tablespoon, you can use 2 tablespoons because the reconstitution value is half. So if you use 1 tablespoon, it reconstitutes to 2. So I'd use a tablespoon of onions, dice them really thin, tablespoon of really thin sliced little carrots, a tablespoon of celery if you are using fresh. Then I would use 2 tablespoons of onions, 2 tablespoons of carrots, 2 tablespoons of celery, and 1 or 2 cloves of garlic, depending on how much garlic you like. And you guys can tweak that. I start with 1 and go from there. If you use less meat and you're making a smaller portion, use less vegetables. And I use them in teaspoonfuls because I want the flavor. I don't want a ton of carbs. That's why I use that. I want my meat cooked. I want to get a little crispiness to it. Wow, I can't believe how much fat and juice is coming out of it, you know? I'll be back in just a second. You know, one thing I forgot about is, do I have any mushrooms left? Oh, I got a few. I love the taste of mushrooms. I'm just gonna put those right in. Oops. Rolling around like little balls. This is a great, this I got at Costco. We only got them there once, so I don't know if your Costco would have them or not, but I know you can order this online. Marty, do we have a link to this online in Amazon? I know they carry it.
Yeah.
And it's really good. If you guys like mushrooms like we do. So I'm just reconstituting them. Use the powdered part of them and everything because that makes great gravy. Mushrooms do. And Harry likes the container. I know he's got his hand out. He's going, give me, don't throw it away. And then I use the little bags in my containers of keto chow to keep them fresh. Listen to that. All the fat and juices coming out of this. Wow. And my tomatoes. Put in my tomatoes. This gives me an idea of how much tomatoes there are in here. Yeah, that looks good. Trying to get them melted in the butter. Okay, so now I'm gonna put in the celery, the carrots, the garlic, the onions, and a little bit of mushrooms. And look how much that gives you vegetable-wise. It really does. And this helps, ooh, smell it now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, smells delicious. This will pick up just a little bit of the juices before I add the broth in. Yes, indeedy. Now, I want 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Hope I'm saying it right. 2 tablespoons. That all stirred in. Let them, oh, smell that. Woohoo, yeah, soak that up. Take that. Ooh, yeah. Yes, indeedy. Oh, Harry.
Oh, yeah.
It smells so good.
Now I'm starting to get a little hungry.
I'm going to turn it down to medium, and I'm going to add my broth. My chicken bone broth in this case. If I had beef, I absolutely would use it. You guys can use bouillon, you can use consommé if you don't have bone broth, but I would get yourself either I would make some homemade bone broth, that's your best, or buy some really good, rich bone broth. So there's that. Ooh, look at this, folks.
Oh, you can see the fat on the top of that?
Yes, look at this. Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Gelatin, man.
And all this delicious, gelatinely delicious goodness. Scrape the bottom, get the little bit of herbs that are left in there that you cooked with.
You know, it'd be good for bones.
Of course it would be. It helps build your bones and your hair and your nails.
It's a bone collagen.
It's a bone collagen. So now you guys, see, ooh, look at how my garlic got big, and my vegetables. Look at the pieces of vegetables that got big, you guys. So now what I want to do is I want to simmer this all together, let it marry before I taste it or do anything else. I'm just going to cover it, bring it to a boil, and let it simmer for a while. Let those vegetables soften up a little bit more. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to taste. I'm going to taste it, and we'll come back and I'll share that. Then we'll re-season as necessary, and then we'll add some xanthan gum at the end in order to give it a thick broth. So you guys, we'll come back in, let's do 30 minutes. The soup has been simmering for half an hour, and these aren't part of my scissors. These are actual mushrooms. They're button mushrooms. Harry goes, did you throw away the black scissors? I said, yes. He goes, oh, good. Then those aren't parts of scissors floating around. I said, no, they are not. Anyway, you guys, this is where you add your thickener. Now, you can thicken it 2 ways. If you want to add cream, you can add cream at this time, but I'm not adding cream. I am just going to put some xanthan gum in here. So I want to bring my heat up a little bit. Let me see. Sprinkle my xanthan gum around. Oops, I got it everywhere. Harry, honey, you gotta move the camera away so I don't get it all everywhere. Okay, I'm gonna...
encroaching under the camera.
Into the camera room, into the camera. Now you guys, while this is getting thick, we're gonna let it get thick. If you don't have dried vegetables, you don't need to go out and buy any, okay? The best thing to do if you don't eat a lot of vegetables like we do is buy fresh frozen. You can get peas, carrots, you know, you can get string beans, you can get diced onions, you can get mushrooms, you can get all those things, or you can chop up some and then freeze it so that you're only getting 1 or 2 tablespoons of each at a time. Because remember, we don't want a lot of carbs, we just want to add a little bit of flavor. That's why I use my dried because we don't use a lot of vegetables. It takes up less space in my cupboard than it does. I'd rather have meat in my freezer, but if you guys are lucky enough to have a big chest freezer, then please feel free. But note that you guys can use whatever vegetables you like too. Just if you say, well, I don't like carrots, well then don't put carrots in. If you know, use string beans and stuff. You don't want string beans, then you know what else would work in here, you guys? If you want to make a stew, radish. Radish is your potato. It's your new best friend. You know, swede, for those of you over in Europe, works, which is a turnip. Celeriac, pieces of celeriac. Again, that's something they use more in Europe than we do here in the United States, but all those work. Just make sure you count the carbs. That is the most important part of using any vegetables, okay? Now, I was reading some comments today, and someone asked me, gee, do I count the carbs in my sweetener? Because the particular sweetener I use has erythritol in it, and it has a lot of total carbs. So here's what I want to say to everybody. You either count all your carbs on every single label and in everything you eat, and you stick to total carbs, or you do the math diligently and figure out true net carbs and go from there. You can't have, well, I'm going to do total carbs on this product or this food, but I'm going to do net carbs on this one because there's a lot of carbs in there and I only want to do net carbs. That's like putting blinders on, especially if you are in a weight stall and you're precariously counting whichever carbs works best for you so that you can eat that food. And that's not how it works, okay? So please, 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 if you're doing total net carbs, you want to keep them as low as possible. What I would do is that if that's how you've been doing it, I would track total carbs and see just how many carbs you are actually eating. You will be amazed. And if you are stalled, that is probably the culprit. And doing total carbs instead of net carbs is going to be your new keto weapon to losing weight. This is getting thick. Still want it a little bit thicker. Just add a little bit of xanthan gum at a time to get it the thickness that you want. It's winter. I want a nice hearty soup because we're only getting one big bowl of soup today. Harry gets actually two because his soup bowl isn't big enough. His soup bowl isn't big enough.
Yeah, that's right. Because you know what happened last time.
That's right. I had grumpy boy.
Because, you know, if I'm going to eat this way, I got to have enough soup to get me through the day.
That's right.
And this has got some good steak pieces in it, so that's going to really make a big difference.
And how do you know that? Because Wendy gave you a piece of this delicious steak, and it's
because I tried some, and it's pretty darn good. Yeah, I thought it was going to be tough, but it's really good.
I've got the gar gum in here. Now I'm going to let this cook on low for about 10 more minutes. And I'm going to put it on low just to let it all incorporate and marry. And then I think it's soup time, you guys. So come back when we dish up our soup. It smells delicious, if I might say so myself. Ooh, yeah. This is the time when you give it that extra check. Make sure. Oh, yeah, look at that. So, one more thing I want to say, Harry, so come back to me. When I talk about our lean body mass weight and having 120 grams of protein, that does not mean 120 grams of steak or 120 grams of chicken. You need to put it into an app because protein is broken out differently for each animal group. You know, beef, chicken, poultry, dairy, fish, shellfish, all have different combinations. Some of them have a different fat to protein profile. Some, especially in the seafood, can have a few carbs. Eggs has almost, 0.7 carbs per egg.
Yep.
So you need to be using an ad. Don't think you can have 120 grams of steak and have enough protein, because the profile broken down is differently. So I'm glad that you asked that question today. Thank you so much. I forgot who asked it, but I truly appreciate that. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, but let's get this soup. Look at this, you guys. Oh my gosh. This is a stew. Look how good that is. Yes, indeed. Wow, so hearty. Look at the big old black mushrooms in there. Oh, yeah, you guys. Man. This is gonna be so delicious. I can smell it. And look at the pieces of carrots in there and tomatoes. Trust me, if you use just a tablespoon or 2 of each of your vegetables, just a half a cup of the chopped tomatoes, doesn't take a lot, adds the flavor, but you're not getting as many carbs, you guys. Man, does that look good. Now comes the taste test. Look at this. Let's have a little bit of the broth. Oops, got a little piece of carrot, a little piece of celery. It's very hot. Ooh, you guys, that is so meaty, so hearty. That little bit of Worcestershire sauce in it. Sorry, I can't say it. Makes it, gives it that deliciousness. Ooh, that steak, tender. Wow. Packed full of delicious flavor. Now, you guys can get the really cheap cuts of meat. You guys can get the stew meat. You guys can get a big old 7-bone roast or a chuck steak or something like that. Chop it up and put it in the pressure cooker and it'll be fall apart. But this is fall apart, delicious, hearty, beefy, meaty steak soup. Look at this, you guys. Look at this. Guys, can you see it, Harry?
Oh, yeah.
You guys know what that means. Oh, Harry, would you like to try some on camera?
No, it's okay.
Okay, you guys.
What to eat?
Gotta eat now. Anyway, you guys, I'm gonna go ahead and close out the video for today. I hope you guys liked the soup. I hope you guys try it because it was super easy, super delicious, and oh my gosh, hearty as all get out. Especially for you guys who got that horrible Arctic storm and you guys have snow and all the things that are winter and cold. You need some of this soup in your belly to warm you up. Anyway, you guys, if you like what you see, please remember to like, subscribe, ring the little bell, give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night, everyone.